and good afternoon or good evening. I've won. Hello, everyone. Hope you're all doing well, and I hope you've enjoyed the nice treat I've had for the music. And, I chose the music today for a very special reason. You see, I quite like my retro stuff, in case you haven't noticed, and so I'm going to carry on doing more retro stuff. And one of the things we're looking at today is a very special type of making music, which started in the 1980s. In the 1980s, they had something called mod trackers, which is a very unique way of making music when the computers weren't too able. Nowadays, you can just sort of put on Spotify or Apple Music or whatever, and it just works fine. But back then, you had to work hard to get your music. So, as is usual, we're going to start off on a website. And the website that you want is... No, wrong one. sb.bitsbytes.eu. Let me just copy that and stick it in chat whilst it loads up. Let me zoom out a tad on here. We should get something that looks an awful lot like this. Now, what you see here is what is known as a mod tracker. And it's called a tracker because it tracks notes. Sorry, let me start from the top. Back in the olden days, when computers didn't have much memory at all, they couldn't just play a sound file. They could only play what are known as samples, only tiny little chunks of music. So what they did was they took those samples and they stitched them together to make long songs. And so on this grid on the left, each little square refers to a different a different sample, so to say. So each different chunk of music. So if I wrote 0, 0, 0, 0, 0 in this column, it'd play 0, 0, 0, 0 as the music went along. This is all rather, well, let's face it, annoying. The best way to demonstrate it is to actually load up a song. So if you go to Open on the left here, it gives you some options to load. Let's load up Sway. And I'm going to click Open, load the song, and there we are. And the only way to show how it works is to actually press play. So once you've got a song loaded, you can click play, and it'll generate it, and sorry, let me turn that down. I'll stop that. So a couple of things to unpick there. We start on row 0, and then we go to row 1, and then row 2, and then row 3, and so on and so on and so on. But each column here refers to a different instrument that plays. So let's go ahead and create our own instrument. So the first thing I would like you to do is click New, and that should give you a nice blank canvas. Oh, I should mention there's been a small update in terms of Technoclub streaming, and that is sort of new website, a new place for all the resources. So if you ever get stuck or slow down, you can go to technocamps.com. And it's gone to the mobile site because my resolution's so low. That's my internet problem. And you can find this activity pack section. When you scroll down in the activity packs, there is one of them titled Virtual Technoclub Resources. And if you click on that one, we can see that there are different options. So that one's about Technoclub. And yeah, this one's the one we're doing today. So if you ever get stuck behind, you can go for this section here and it'll basically walk it through it for you. But enough of that, let's actually get to creating it ourselves. So the first thing you should do is you should have a look at row 0 and you should see if there is a 0 in the first box. And if there is, you're set to continue. If not, you need to actually click on that box and type 0. Now, what that does is it starts making a pattern for us. And the pattern, go away, the pattern is this middle purple box here. See, when I can click on it, it has a red outline. So this is the pattern we're going to create. Now, before we can create a pattern, we need to choose what sound to use. So if you go and click on this drop-down arrow here, you can choose which sound you want. So let's start with classic 8-bit. And that's loaded that sound into the pattern editor so that when I press this keyboard, it should play it. There you are. We're actually working with the sound. So how do I get that and turn it into a pattern? And how do I turn a pattern into a song? Well, each of these lines refers to what gets played at any one point in the pattern. You can imagine that the pattern is sort of like a phrase or a chunk of music. So this code club comes with a warning, and that warning is, I am absolutely terrible at music. I've got the musical ability of a walrus. So if it doesn't sound too good, that's my fault. But I'll give it a go anyway. It's along this track that we start putting in our notes. So I'm just going to, let's do a scale. Let's just go from the lowest note to the highest note. So I click on the first cell of the pattern, and let's start with middle C. And you can see that it's written in that box for us. You might not be able to see it on my screen, but a tiny little C4. And that refers to this key here. And in the next box, let's do a D4, an E4, an F4, G4, A4, B4, and C5. It's C5 because we've gone up an octave. So now the pattern 0 contains this row of notes. Let's see whether it works. Let's click play. And there you are. Very loud and not too great sounding. But we've got ourselves a scale. Now, what we can do, if we wanted to play more than one note at a time, we can actually put values in these ones too. So when that one plays D4, let's say that also plays, let's D5, let's have one play, I don't know. Just fill these in with a load of rubbish. Yeah. Do tell me if it's too loud, but I filled it in with some rubbish, and when we play it, we can hear that it's playing more than one note at a time. So I'm just going to delete all these because, let's face it, that wasn't good music. One thing I should mention, you don't have to use this keyboard in the bottom right. You can actually use the keyboard that you type on normally, that you actually write things into the computer with. And it's usually the bottom row of numbers is C4 to C to B4. And then A, S, D, F, G, H, J, K, and L, the sharp notes. And then Q, W, E, R, T, Y, and so on are the top notes. But let's try something. I've got something I've prepared in advance. It's not very good, but I'll give it a go. The first thing for this song is I need to change the tempo. And the tempo refers to how many rows are played at any one point. So if you look in the bottom left, you can see two numbers. The top one is labelled BPM, and the bottom one is labelled RPP. Now, the top one refers to beats per minute, and we want something quite high. Let's have something like 260 beats per minute. And if you change that number lower, your song will be slower, and if you change it higher, your song will be higher. Righto. So, I'm going to start off making sure I'm using pattern 0. Let's have C4, and then let's have G4, and then on row 14 I'm going to have A sharp. That's G sharp, wrong one. There you are. Let's play it. Let's play that again. And that is going to be my first pattern. That's just the, yeah. Okay, we'll see. So I've created one pattern. Now I need to go ahead and create another. And I want my second pattern to play after the first one. So if my first pattern's called 0, I want my next pattern to be something else. It can be anything you want. I'm going to call this pattern 1, just because I know the order then. I know it goes 0, 1. So my pattern 1, I've typed this in row 1 of the grid on the left, because what happens, it'll play pattern 0, and then it'll play pattern 1. And so now it's my chance to create pattern 1. So pattern 1 is going to be the same instrument, and it's going to start with a D sharp on row 4. Is that the right number? There you are. D4. To get that, I pressed D on the keyboard. And immediately after that, I'm going to have an F, and that's going to be, yeah, that was V on the keyboard. And then I'm going to skip over a bit, and I'm going to go to row 15, and I'm going to have A4. And on row 24, I'm going to have G4. So let's listen to this. We should have pattern 0 play first, and then we should have pattern 1. So we should see them swap over. So let's see. Pattern 0 goes now, and then pattern 1. And it repeats over and over and over and over again. And yeah, that's our series of patterns. But I want to expand on that. I want more patterns. Let's make a pattern 2. So after pattern 1, I'm going to write pattern 2. And let's fill that out. Pattern 2 starts with G5. Let's see what that one is. G5 is going to be on the keyboard. That one? Yeah, it's quite a high-pitched one. But on row 8, now I'm going to put D sharp 5. That's that black note there. On that one, I'm going to have F5. And on 24, row 24, I'm going to go back to G5. So only 4 notes for that one. G5, D sharp 5, F5 and G5. And notice I've got them spread out on these lighter purple lines. These lines show you where the beat is, so to say. So it helps you keep in time when you're writing these. Someone's asking in Discord, what are all the notes? Give me a second. Yeah, if you go on to Google or Google Images or whatever search engine you like to use the most, and just search up for note names, I think it is. Let me have a look. Or at least I would look had I not accidentally typed in Nate names. Note names. Images. Note names. No, those are all pretty useless. Yeah. So we can actually find out the names using the same Wikipedia page that we used when we did musical microbits. Let me stick that out in chat if anyone's struggling to find the names. I'm afraid that's exactly what real keyboards are like. They actually call them G4, G5, and so on. And the number refers to what octave they are. So 1 at the very bottom is a very low note, the lowest octave, and then there's 2, and then there's 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And that's just for a piano keyboard. But as you can see on the mod tracker, where it says octave, it tells you what octave you're using on the left. Okay, so we've got pattern 0, pattern 1, and pattern 2. Let's finish off with a pattern 3, so I'm just going to call that 3. And pattern 3 is nice and simple. It's only got 1 note. Sorry, you were talking about a computer keyboard. There is no diagram for it, I'm afraid. It's just a case of getting a feel for where the numbers are. So any octave that has a 4 after it is on the letters Z to M on the very bottom row above the spacebar. And for the notes with 5 next to them, for octave 5, they're on the top row of numbers. Anyway, so on pattern 3, all I want is a C5. And to get the C5, I pressed Q. So pattern 3, C5, Q. Okay, let's listen to our whole thing all together. And one more time. There you are. Interesting little ditty. Not very good, but it's funky enough. So how do I carry on with this? Well, I can carry on repeating things. So if I want pattern 0 to play again, I can type in 0 anywhere in this first column. So if I wanted to go play that little tune and then play it again, I'd have on row 4 onwards, 0, 1, 2, 3. And it should repeat. There we are, it played twice. Let's mess up our system now. Let's let's just have loads of zeros and see what happens. And so on. And let's remix it a little bit. Let's just stick a 2 in there. Let's have that one be a 1. That one be a 3. And let's have another 3. And let's have a 1. Let's see what happens. It's all messed up. Let's go back to something nice and neat. Let's go 0, 1, 2, 3. 0, 1, 2, 3. So when it comes to music, we've just created our melody part. That's the bit that, that's the bit that people are going to whistle, that people are going to remember. Now it's time to do the backing track. And so the backing track is usually a sort of bassy instrument, quite low, quite like a bass guitar. And when it comes to mod trackers, each column is called a channel, and each instrument plays on each channel. Now, for very old computers, they could only manage 2 channels or 3 channels or 4 channels. We've got 16 channels to play with, so we could have 16 instruments all playing at the same time. So let's go for channel 2. It's going to be right next to it. And where do we want this new instrument to kick in? Well, I'm going to say let's kick in around about line 4. And we need to give this new pattern a name. I'm going to call it, let's call it pattern R. And I'm calling it R just because. I mean, it could be anything if you wanted. As long as it's one letter or number. So we could have 0 again. Because 0 is in a different channel, it's not the same 0 as the one that's in the first channel. Let's just call it, I don't know, R for clarity. And this is going to be the bass note. So, as before, we need to choose which instrument we're going to use for this. What are we going to use for R? So let's have something quite bassy. What does bell sound like? No, I don't think bell's going to work. Filter bass? No. Let's try pipe hit. Yeah, that sounds alright. I quite like pipe hit. Yeah, let's stick with pipe hit. Now, you'll notice that underneath we've got all these settings here. And these are great. These are our settings for sound synthesis. So we can actually start producing our own unique instruments that have never been heard before. And the way that works is, well, a sound wave is exactly that. It's a wave. So what a synthesizer does is it actually generates those waves for us. So you'll see that the first option we have is called oscillator 1. Oscillator 1 is going to be sort of the main shape of the wave that makes up our instrument sound. So I can choose it to be a sine wave, which is this curly one here. Let's see how that sounds. We can have it as a triangle wave. Oh, that sounds almost identical. That's pointless. Let's have it as a sawtooth wave. And finally as a square wave. Oh, I like that. It's got a kind of a chunky 8-bit sound to it. And underneath that, we can change the volume of it. So if we want that to be we don't want that chunky sound in it, we can change the volume low. We can turn it all the way up. And this semi option changes the pitch of it, changes the semi-tune. So if we had it really high-pitched, if we had it really low-pitched, ooh, that might be a bit too low-pitched. Let's have it around about there. Yeah, I quite like that. Oscillator 2 does exactly the same thing, but it adds its sound on top of the other one. So if we change the wave in that one, well, that's a little bit harsh. I liked it as it was, actually. It's also got a semi-tune option. And it's also got this detune option. And the detune makes it sound a little bit harsh, a little bit sort of miserable. There we are. They've also got this sort of XEnv option. I'm not really sure what that does. Let's see. Let's click it. Not hearing any difference. Ooh. Well, that's gone weird. Don't like that one. I'm going to turn XEnv off. The next option we have here is noise. And the higher this value is, the more hiss, the more crackle appears in your note. So if I turn that really low down, I get something. Sounds really clean, sounds really... I can't think of a better word for clean. So I'm going to stick with clean. And if we turn the noise volume up really high, then we get something that's really crunchy. So I'm going to have that quite low. Okay, I'm going to save going through the rest of the settings for our next instrument. Am I? I don't know. Actually, I'm going to go through them. So envelope refers to the shape of the note. Does it start quietly and last a long time, or does it start quickly and end quickly? And if we play this note, it's a very short note, it's very sharp. If we wanted it to start slowly, what we do is we take this ATT slider, which stands for attack, we turn that up, and when I press this note, it should start smoothly. There you are. It's a really slow, steady thing. I'm going to turn that down because that wasn't a nice sound. The sustain slider, which is the middle one, refers to sort of how long the note lasts. So I'm very careful to use this one because it can start making noise and never stop. So let's see what happens. Okay, that's not too bad. And the release slider, which is the last one, it's all like attack but in reverse. It's how smoothly the sound ends. So if I turn that really... Oh, let's not do high, otherwise it'll last too long. Let's see what it sounds like now. See, it's got a kind of... It dies off a little bit at the end. Arpeggio is how many notes play at once. So we can make it sound a little bit like a telephone. Maybe not. If we have... There you are. I usually keep that one off. LFO refers to how the note changes over time. So basically all you need to worry about this one is frequency and amount. Ooh. Sorry if you heard a loud grumbling, that's not my stomach, that's a motorbike going past. This amount slider changes how I need to think of a better term, but how wibbly the note is. Okay, so let me demonstrate. Let me turn it up high. Let's hear what it sounds like. If I turn it low, no wibbles. Turn it up high. Can you hear where it does a sort of deep dive down? That's because LFO stands for low frequency oscillation. And it's basically how the note changes over time. And frequency changes how much it changes, and amount... No, sorry, I got them the wrong way around. Frequency changes how often it changes, and amount changes how much it changes. Have I said change enough yet? So if you turn the frequency up, it sounds like you got a question wrong on a quiz show. Yeah, I'll leave them low. And finally we go on to the FX slider. Now this just changes how the note sounds, what effects apply to it. And there's no real explanation for some of these, it's just a case of twiddle some sliders, see what you like. What interesting thing happens if you change dist, this slider makes it just sound weird. It's kind of gone hissy. Pan changes which ear it plays out of. So if I change pan to the left, it hasn't changed much for me. I wonder if I've got my headphones set up wrong. Delay changes how echoey it is. So that's lots of echoes. That's not much echo. Okay, that's enough of me talking about settings. I could bore myself to death with that. But we've basically created our own instrument. Remember, it sounded completely different from how we started. When we started, it sounded a bit like this. And then we ended up with it sounding like this. So, yeah, huge difference. Now we can actually start making a pattern. This is my bass line, so I want it to be kind of continuous, kind of thumpy. Let's have C4. And on line 4, let's have C4 again. And then on line... do I want on line 4 or line... Let's have it on line 8. Let's have C4 again. C4. Let's mix up. Let's go C sharp. And then on line 24, I'm going to have C4 again. And on line 26, I'm going to have C4 again. Okay. Here comes the major warning. This is going to sound terrible. So we're going to start with our normal tune. And it'll play for 4 rows. And then it's going to start with our new instrument playing. Let's click play. It was a little bit brief, but you heard that there. If we repeat it along a bit, so we just have the same pattern. Let's have R, 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 R in the second column. Let's make the song go longer, actually. Let's have 0, 1, 2, 3. And in the next column, let's have R, 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 R. Let's see what we get. Anyway, enough of that. I'm sure you can do better than I can. I mean, to be fair, a small cat could do better than I can. Not exactly the most musical of people. But I do know that we'll also need a drum track. And, yeah. So we've got our melody, we've got our bass. Now we need something to get the thump going, to get it, sounding more than just a sort of awkward tune. So in the next column, which is channel 3, I'm going to make a new pattern. Let's call it D for drums. And when I click on D, we can choose an instrument for it. Let's do... What does the snare sound like? Oof, that's very... That might be too powerful. Let's try snare 2. No, a little bit too hissy. Oh, that's quite a dirty sound actually. Bass tom. Oof. Oh, that was so low it hurt my heart. Let's just go bass drum 4. I've used that one before. I know what it's like. As a pattern, I'm just going to try some nonsense in here. I mean, when you change pitches with drums, it doesn't really change much at all. So it doesn't really matter what note you put down. But I'm just going to do C4. Let's try D sharp. Let's try D. Let's try G4. And then on line 12, let's do and C4. And on line 20, D sharp. And then on line 22, we can have D4. And then on line... Okay, so now we should have our drum track. Let me extend that through the rest of the song. Let's have put D there, and then on the row below. Okay, let's take bets on how terrible this sounds. Yeah, enough of that. A nice trick for sort of ending a song or finishing off a song is just to see what I've done here. I've started with only one instrument, then I've gone up to 2 instruments, then I've gone up to 3 instruments. Sometimes it's nice to sort of go in reverse, to go from all of your instruments to only some of your instruments, or one of them. So I'm just going to write out another sort of repeating pattern. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, 3. Let's have this section being only the bass line. So R, 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 R. Let's leave that one free, and then let's have the drums only go twice more, and we should get a sort of nice even curve to it. And there we are. And yeah, sorry for that bit of punishment, but yeah. If anyone wants to copy along my song for whatever reason, I don't know, maybe you're mad, or actually, let me rephrase that. If you want to challenge and you want to choose what I've change what I've written and actually make it, good, then I've actually saved a copy for you, and you can always access it at this link that I'm posting in chat now. And if you click on that, you should get a very similar song. Maybe you can fix it, maybe you can tweak it. In my opinion, it should just be deleted, but that's only because I'm not a musical person. But yeah, The reason I bring up mod trackers, one of my favourite genres of music, and it's not really a genre, but I call it a genre because the way that it's structured, the way that it works, kind of makes music that you can listen to and think, oh yes, that's mod music there, without really knowing that it is or not. And I said at the beginning that it was extremely popular, and it is popular. It's been around for years, and as far back as 1985, where it first started. And there's a lot of people who are very passionate about this. In fact, there is something called the demo scene, who love mod trackers, and they've actually recorded every single mod that's ever been made. You can get to that. There's a website called the Mod Archive. It's just modarchive.org. And this website has every single mod file ever made. And that's amazing. In fact, some of the songs you heard whilst waiting for this stream to start were a couple of my favourite mod songs that I'd chosen. And they're all made around the 90s, but people are making them even today, and you can even find the new stuff, like new editions. And some of the stuff, if we go to, let's search up Guitar Slinger. You can actually play it on the site by clicking the little play button. You get a window like this. So it's a very powerful way of making music. And if you're looking for software to make it, if this Soundbox website doesn't work too great for you, then there's one available called OpenMPT. And that's a nice little piece of software that makes it very easy to create mod trackers. And if you're feeling adventurous, you can even get mod trackers for ancient computers over 25 years old. So if you've got one of those knocking around, then you can always try and install a tracker on that. In any case, I hope that's been a little interesting look into the world of mod trackers. They are certainly very, not nostalgic for me, but they're very close to my heart. I like them. They just sounds very, I don't know. I'm talking rubbish. I just like them. And I hope that I've introduced them to you too, and that you like them as well. I'm always free to stick around for the next few minutes or so, but in the meantime, enjoy some more nice mod music. So, that's everything. Ta-ra!